let in, allowed
Oh,
for
I see
joining.
what you're saying, yes. Because I was wrestling with the issue before then and didn't know what to do with it.
Before that, it would just have been an idea, not a knowing.
Right.
But you feel it. And the feeling comes when someone joins with you who is aware of his bigness, if I may put it that way. Continue.
And I guess my question is, am I avoiding, by using that construct, am I avoiding some little step here in terms of yielding fully to the Father? Because it's helpful, it's comforting to think of it in that way. Yeah, I'm not seeing how large I am, and so if I yield, then I become larger. And I recognize the comfort and the security of that. But I'm wondering if that isn't at the same time holding back and saying, okay, Father, here I am, totally naked. I accept. I'm your puppet. And let's go from there.
Well, the larger you is still a puppet.
Bingo. Okay.
You see, the Father is greater and always will be greater. You are not your source and never will be. But when you are no longer claiming a sense of self separate from and independent from your source, then your source will be your constituting presence. God will be the presence and the only presence right where you are. And it is not possible for you to grasp experientially at this point the fact that you can still be you, and Paul can still be Paul, and you can experience each other distinctly while at the same time experiencing the fact that you are inseparably one. But that is what the fact will be. That is what the experience will be. Then you might say the two of you will do the dance God is dancing, and you will appear to cooperate with each other. You will appear to move intelligently with each other. You will be with each other in exquisitely beautiful ways. But not because you're expressing any independence from each other at all, or from God. I know the ego says, well, then you're just going to be some sort of automaton or robot. But you know what? As long as you buy into that, and as long as you have the intent of expressing an independent will, thereby proving, in quotes, that you have an independent existence, you will continue to experience the human condition, which, as I said earlier, you all profess you want to escape. I have done it, and I have not come back to you and said, I am miserable. And your guides have not said to you, they are miserable. And the way they relate to you, because it blesses you, demonstrates the fact that there is not misery in them, because if there were, it would be reflected and embodied in their guidance, and it would become your experience as well. Okay.
So no person that's awake is asking you any questions. No guide asks you any questions.
No, we all together know, K-N-O-W. We all together know that we know. And we rejoice, we joy in the knowing. We joy in the communion of our knowing.
So in the dance, no one ever misses a step.
That is correct. Let us continue.
Revelations are indirectly inspired by me because I am close to the Holy Spirit and alert to the revelation readiness of my brothers. I can thus bring down to them more than they can draw down to themselves. The Holy Spirit mediates higher to lower communication, keeping the direct channel from God to you open for revelation. Revelation is not reciprocal. It proceeds from God to you, but not from you to God.
And it never will. Revelation will never be reciprocal. It will always proceed from God to you, and it will never be from you to God. You see, that's where you goof up when it comes to prayer. Because you say, here I am, an independent mind, and you stand over somewhere in infinity and you say, hey God, I'm over here. Hey God, may I have your attention, please? The communication doesn't actually work in that direction. Prayer, as I've said before, is you saying, Father, what is your will? It isn't saying, please give me this, please make my marriage, please save my marriage. Hey God, I'm over here, here's what I need, here's what I want. You say, Father, what do I need? And then you shut up and listen and be receptive and stop resisting. How do you resist? By saying, oh, I should be able to figure this out for myself. Or I should be able to determine the manner in which God will answer me. Prayer is saying help, listening, being receptive, letting in so that revelation can occur, and you can more clearly be the conscious presence of God being all there is right there where you are. When you are awake, revelation, God expressing Himself, God expressing His will, God being all, will be your conscious experience of being you. Not of you being all, but of you being God, consciously being all there is. Your conscious experience of being will be God's conscious experience of being all. Revelation will not then seem to come to you. It will be your conscious experience of being, period.
So we stop for a moment to pray, Father, what is your will? And then we listen.
Indeed.
If we've gone through those steps, is it possible not to hear the response?
Only, yes, it is possible not to hear the response if there is still willfulness present. If you say, I want to hear God's will so that I can make a killing in the stock market, or so that I can really do my wife a special favor and gain her favor, or so that you can supposedly do something independently with the gift the Father has given you, you will not hear the answer.
It just, a lot of people seem to be asking and taking the time to listen, but even fewer have a conscious experience of hearing the response. On Sunday, Robbie asked if why she wasn't able to hear, or I can't hear, and your reply was, yes, you do, which she accepted readily. Oh, yeah, I guess I do.
Yes.
People ask me about that, and they say, well, I don't hear God's voice, and I don't understand how it's possible not to when you've put yourself in that position.
First of all, you don't know what God's voice sounds like. And that in itself causes you not to hear it because it's new. And so that's why it's important to persist in asking and listening. Because there is always a response. Your guides are available to you constantly. Your guides speak to you often. And you don't hear. First of all, because usually you're not listening. You're taking care of everything yourself. But once you learn that you have guidance available to you, then you begin to listen as though there is going to be a response. You've got to be willing to abide in the listening mode so that you can begin to make sense out of that space. So that the characteristics of silence, as opposed to your busyness of thinking, can begin to register with you as something other than just emptiness. The key is persistence. It's as simple as that. Understand that every time you ask, you are responded to. Understand that your guide has ways to find effective means for registering with you. But understand that beginning to listen is the breaking of a long-standing habit of active independence. An independence which is geared for being sustained by not allowing anything to interfere with it. So don't be surprised if you don't hear quickly. And persist in the gentle desire to hear. When you ask a question, it helps to ask it softly. Don't yell it out into the universe. Don't say it with vehemence. Don't say it with determination. It's almost like homeopathy. The less there is of the substance, the more powerful it becomes. The gentler and quieter your question, the easier it will be to hear, because you are bringing less willfulness into the act of asking.
So then even in the act of asking, we're yielding to God's will.
That is correct.
Thanks.
You are welcome. Let us continue.
The miracle minimizes the need for time. In the longitudinal or horizontal plane, the recognition of the equality of the members of the sonship appears to involve almost endless time.
Well, let's just think about it for a moment. If you're looking on a horizontal plane, and let's say in the horizontal plane, you could see the tops of the heads of all of the brotherhood. It would extend to infinity. And for you to manage to connect with each one of them would take an eternity to move to the other end of infinity, so to speak, and to just say hi to each one. Continue.
However, the miracle entails a sudden shift from horizontal to vertical perception. This introduces an interval from which the giver and receiver both emerge further along in time than they would otherwise have been.
I will stop you there. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that if you are in a valley and you cannot see which way it's going to twist and turn, you seem to be at the mercy of time and space, because it will take time to move through the space of the valley to arrive at a point where you can see whether or not the distance you have traveled is actually helping you get to your destination. Whereas if you were to climb to the top of the mountain and had the larger view, you could from there see whether indeed that trail was going to get you to your destination, or whether the opposite direction would get you there quicker. And so by having the vertical viewpoint, it saves you time.
Is this principle represented by the axis mandale in Shambhalism. Is that what that's talking about?
Say that again.
In shamanism, the idea of the horizontal axis and the vertical axis intersecting each other, is that what that principle is talking about? The same thing we're talking about here?
You could say that, yes. However, this example of horizontal and vertical should not be relied upon in terms of physical definition. What it represents is what happens when you have a problem that needs resolving, or something that doesn't work well, and suddenly one day a light bulb goes on, an aha occurs, and suddenly you see a solution to the problem. It is as though you were suddenly experiencing an overview. You were able to look at it from a point outside of the problem itself, or outside of the limitations you were experiencing when you were looking at the situation. The aha you have may take a while to express or explain to someone else. But the experience of the aha took place in an instant of time. Now, when you desire of God to know the truth about a brother or about a situation, and your reason for asking is because you have made that one an object of your affection, and you care, and you are expressing a devotion, and you want to be a mentor in this situation, you will find yourself, because of your quietly expressed desire, your gently expressed desire, you will find yourself infilled with a new perspective, a sudden shift of perception that will reveal your brother or sister to you in a new light, as I've said before. His or her divinity will be obvious to you, along with the realization of yours as well. There will be an intimacy, whether you've expressed the miracle, the sudden shift of perception or not. And the potential is there for your brother or sister to experience instantaneous and sudden transformation as well. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. And a situation will be harmonized, resolved instantly, which otherwise might have taken days or weeks or months of therapy, or of reasoning one's way through the maze. You see? There are no private thoughts. There not only are no private thoughts, there are no private experiences. There is no private love.
I see something that, habitually I look for meaning in symbols and concepts, and now I see even more clearly that this is talking about my experience that I'm having. And I just clutter the experience and clutter the clarity by trying to relate it to some mystical symbol or some concept I got out of a book, or et cetera,
Absolutely.
et cetera.
Besides, in the sudden influx of shifted perception, you may find new symbols to use in talking or sharing with others that will be more effective than the old symbols were for triggering a new idea. Or you may, as I have done tonight, use an old symbol for a new reason. Like, all of you are puppets. And you're all familiar with Pinocchio and being a puppet without strings. So, let symbols serve the revelation rather than trying to start with the symbol and have revelation work through it. Okay. Continue.
The miracle thus has the unique property of abolishing time to the extent that it renders the interval of time it spans unnecessary. There is no relationship between the time a miracle takes and the time it covers. The miracle substitutes for learning that might have taken thousands of years. It does so by the underlying recognition of perfect equality of giver and receiver on which the miracle rests. The miracle shortens time by collapsing it, thus eliminating certain intervals within it. It does this, however, within the larger temporal sequence.
Every single time you have the experience of the miracle, of a sudden shift of perception that causes you, by virtue of an unplanned clarity, to be in a place that you otherwise know it would have taken a great deal of time for you to get to through reasoning and working on yourself, etc. Every time you have that kind of experience, it tells you that you don't have to depend on time for anything. In other words, it helps weaken your reliance on time as the solution to your problems. And it relieves you of the idea that it must necessarily take you a long time to accomplish a lot. Because to whatever degree you have a commitment to it taking a long time because you believe it must take a long time, you are providing resistance to an instantaneous healing, to a sudden shift of perception, to the miracle. You see? So every time you have this experience of the miracle, it weakens your reliance on time, your faith in time, and your bondage to time. And this in itself helps precipitate the further breakdown of the idea that you exist in time